I listened to that Coyote song again, but like actually listen to it, man, it's pretty good.
It hits, doesn't it?
Yeah, definitely. Especially like when you think of tribal, I could see how you're like obsessed with coyotes now.
Obsessed with coyotes now.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I love it. Thanks for the intro. We are recording here. This is the first live demo. Oh, we got Logan joining as well. I love it. This is the first live demo that I'm ever really doing on anything. And this is on writing with AI. And I'm going to share a little bit about number one, the writing workshop that we did for the Run Write Build camp out here in Boulder about a week ago. I'm going to walk you through the writing exercise that I prompted those guys through. And we are going to use that exercise as a frame here to build out on ideas. And the real reason that I am wanting to host this kind of a demo is number one, I am using ChatGPT more and more and more to write. And I am also seeing that so many of the writers inside of Quill Keepers are finding themselves like stuck in the idea stage. It's almost like every time I talk, um, especially one on one with the guys that I talk with related to endurance coaching, we start chatting on writing, and it's like they've had all these different things going on, and they feel like they don't have time to write. And then the mind is sort of stuck in this place where it's not extracting insight out of experience, and there's not this really beautiful flow of like I'm living and I'm experiencing these things and I'm chasing these goals and I'm leading my family and this is how I'm thinking about it and this is what I'm learning about it and this is what you can try if you're looking to live a life like this. And in my own process, um, just the repetition of going through this type of 3 E's exercise is what it's going to be. Going through the repetition of this workshop that I'll carry you through, and then also using ChatGPT has been very helpful for me to just get things out and then also layer in the foundational writing and communication strategies that we've been working on since Quill Keepers even started. And so that is kind of where we're headed. I'm going to talk about this 3 E's workshop, and then I'm going to talk about using this is one of the first things that we talked about inside of, I think it was the writer's workshop before Quill Keepers was even a thing, but using voice dictation and the microphone inside of ChatGPT to get your ideas out. And then layering in the other types of writing strategies like hooks and formatting and creating a slippery slope and adding in quotes. Like those are all the things that we then layer in on top of the ChatGPT feedback and the drafting that can help us do. So that's kind of where we're headed. Okay. Now, with that, this 3 E's exercise. So, the what happened for the Run Right Build workshop is that we basically had these guys come out and we did this pretty big trail run. It's like a 3 hour trail run. And the idea was we're going to go to a coffee shop and we're going to write about this afterwards and we're going to reflect on it so that we can gain more out of this experience. And so I guided the guys through this 3 E's workshop, but I didn't tell them where we we're headed. I just dripped out one E at a time. And the first E is experience. So you start with experience. And this is layering right into all of the story work that we have been doing on what was your frame on it? Like you wanted to get into endurance as a guy who'd been lifting, right? Thinking about Zach Shipley. It's like, don't just talk about the generic basics of making that transition. Like, what were you feeling? You were feeling like you weren't being pushed enough, you weren't being challenged enough, whatever. And so in this trail run, we got to hear from Mason. He was all stressed out going into it because he drove in from Indiana the night before, got in at 10 p.m., drove through a dust storm, woke up on low sleep. 5 minutes into the run, he's not acclimated to altitude. His heart rate's to the moon. So his whole experience is like he really had to work on being able to run his own race, but like communicating that to the team. So that was like one element of it. Blaine's experience was that this was the second time that he was doing this exact trail. And so he was really feeling like confident related to that first time. He had no idea what he was doing. He was trying to hold road pacing, running up a trail. And so talking about expectations, talking about your internal dialogue, talking about your fears, your doubts, the challenges that you run into, the way that you overcome, how you feel empowered through the experience. Like that is what can be part number one. That's the experience part. Now, once we get that out, now we've got one type of post to work with where, we could, for the guys that are on the call here, Logan, it could be your experience of like, hey, I just exited my first corporate job and transitioned to my second corporate job. This was my experience of having more authority in my conversations, having more conviction in the boundaries that were important to me related to my new job. Um, this was how I was thinking about weighing pros and cons of more money versus more freedom. Matt Bank experience things related to you. I was just thinking about the 5 hour ride that you did ahead of your wife's birthday salon appointment. So you talking about like I had this 5 hour ride ahead of my Ironman. It's really important to me that I create space for my wife and be present for my family. And it was my wife's birthday, and I wanted to send her out to do things with the girls. But I had this 5 hour ride on this big goal that I have, and I want to push myself. And I had thoughts to just not do any of it. And I really hesitated when I saw it on the plan. But then I remembered, no, man, I got this goal and I got to enter action with boldness. So I woke up at 2:45 to get on the bike by 3 so I could be done by 8. Like that would be the experience part. Now, once we get that out, we can evolve to the education part. Education is the second E. Now, education is where you step into the frame of helping others who are behind you. And this is where it can get very tactical. Some examples for I was on a call with Brandon yesterday, and Brandon just took this trip from his hometown in Washington out to Phoenix, Arizona for a baseball tournament for his son. And Brandon got some really dope trail runs in. And so, as I'm talking about this stuff with Brandon, it's like, okay, if you wanted to educate somebody, you think about the guy out there that, to Brandon, it's just the default to live the adventurous endurance lifestyle. But there's some guy out there who's got a baseball tournament over the weekend for his kid that he's allowing feel like a burden. And the guy wants to live, a committed and a dedicated and a, a life on offense, but he doesn't really know how to do it. And there's a million ways that Brandon could probably help out a guy like that. But very simply, it's like, hey, Brandon had this experience. If you want to do it, here's how you can find really fun adventure and experience and develop your fitness when you are traveling. This could be directed towards a kid's baseball tournament or just traveling anywhere. And the education would be like 3 tips: bring your trail running shoes, look up local trails on all trails, and find a 2 hour window where you can just go explore. So now all of a sudden, right, that could be something that's as basic as a simple tweet, or that could be expanded into a short Substack. That could be a really simple podcast, any form of communication. Right. So we've gone from Brandon in this example having this experience of going towards the baseball training camp, the baseball tournament. Everything he wanted to do was prioritizing a dad, right? It was really important to him that he was present as a father, being at all the games, all that stuff. But also in his own mind, he's like, it's important that I get some training in. This doesn't mean I'm 4 days off of training because I've got some tournaments I got to go to. Right. So how can I figure out pushing myself and creating some experience? Okay. Well, he can weave that into the experience part as well, but now all of a sudden he can educate. Now, the third E is enlightenment. And this is like the meat and potatoes of what I feel everybody's working towards inside of Quill Keepers. And this is the ability to cross over lessons from other areas of life. I'll give you an example from something that I was thinking on for a Substack that I was just writing on the art of the long ride. So I got a Substack I'm drafting up on what are all the things that you want to consider and bring into your process to take the long ride from something that's just a mental grind or a test of fitness to a spiritual ritual that becomes part of your identity and your lifestyle. And a big part of it is making sure that I'm not just leaving my wife out to dry with family kiddo duty. And so to me, if I'm going to plan to be out on something that's quite long on a Saturday, it's very important to me that I front load my parenting duty. And to me, that often looks like bearing more of the load on Friday. Maybe I'm handling kiddo drop off if he's going to the nanny. Maybe I'm handling pickup. Maybe I'm handling cooking. Maybe I'm handling bath time. Maybe I'm making space Friday afternoon for my wife to go do whatever she wants to do and basically just not be on mom duty. And to me, I'm like, oh, well, that is the same thing as basically your pre ride fuel. Like, you don't go into a 3 hour ride fasted and just expect to eat a couple things along the way and then eat after the ride and have your whole process be a success. Like, you're going to burn out, you're going to fade. And that same process can happen in marriage if I just have the normal week roll through. I'm kind of letting my wife do her automatic mom things. And then all of a sudden, it's just like Saturday morning, Ryan's gone for 4 hours. Well, from a family perspective and a marriage perspective, that would be kind of going into that fasted. And so that's kind of one example of, you see it in one area of life, you see it in fitness, and you bring it over to professional life, or you bring it over to marriage, or you bring it over to relationships. So that's really like the frame of how I'm going to go through this. But I also, the whole point of this is some live chat GPT work and how my process is evolving day by day. Let me pause this screen share here and just get live into a chat GPT window, and we will see what kind of magic we can bring to life here. Okay. So we are inside of ChatGPT here. I guess just before getting into like the writing tactics, I have been using ChatGPT as more or less a reference point for anything that I want to learn. Instead of Google, I'm pretty much going to ChatGPT these days, whether it's for something that I just want to learn or get better at. My most recent search was on Bible study prompt guides. I was feeling like my Bible study is going a little bit stale and directionless with the guy who's leading it. And so instead of me just saying, I don't like how this is going, I'd like to go with some new ideas. So I was checking that out. I was looking up something about if you can record breakout rooms in Zoom, looking up some other random stuff on writing ideas or design or playing with the new AI art stuff. Now, getting into the tactics here. So I got the ChatGPT window up here on my computer, but I also got the phone app. And so the way that I operate this with the phone app is that I basically just pop in here. And if I'm going to start, if I have an experience and I want to start to carve out these three E's, I'm going to get right into the voice mode and just talk about it. Talk about what happened, talk about what I want to write about, what I'm thinking about. And even this morning, I'm sitting in, I'm kind of racing around. I was telling Matt Bank, I had a little bit of a chaotic morning. I'm like, what the fuck am I going to write about in this, in this demo that I do? Like, I have no idea. And then instantly, something presents itself. And it's all around the fact that my family got chicks this past week. We got six chicks that are pretty much sitting right here next to me. And I'm just gonna go live here. I'm not gonna give you any insight. So I'm gonna start here on my phone, and my hope I'll just be able to pull this up on the screen. But I want to show you guys exactly the way this works. And my goal here is that I'd love to be able to turn this into something that can be publishable before the end of this little demo here. So we will get started. Okay. Last weekend, my wife went to the local feed and seed store and got six chicks. The chicks are going to grow into chickens that will be laying eggs, and they're going to be living in our backyard. It's a really fun family project, and it has opened up an opportunity for my son Jack Jack to be a part of a learning experience that brings in homestead vibes and culture to our family, which is something that we've been wanting to do and thinking about for a couple of years. We really love how living out in Colorado opens up more of these experiences where we can participate in these rural activities in more of a low maintenance way. But at the same point, the chicks are already presenting a few challenges. Number one is they are costing more than we expected. It was around $200 for the chicks and all the intro supplies, but now my wife is looking at getting a chicken coop, and that could be $600 to $1,000. And then just this morning, one of the chicks is sick, and my wife is spending 30 minutes on the phone with the vet looking to book an appointment and get this baby chick checked at. What I am struggling to balance as a father and the leader of my home is that I love the experience of raising these chicks and creating a family learning process together. But I am also seeing that it could become a financial drain. And I am also seeing that it could be something that sucks my wife's attention and blocks her from having space in her day to prioritize herself, whether that be exercise, time alone, or just time with our son, Jack Jack. I would like to write a Substack on how I am balancing all of these things and my experience leading my family while giving my wife permission to pursue this, but at the same point, providing the leadership to keep the whole project on track. I would also like to create a shorter Substack that shares tactics on how somebody can get started raising chicks by going to the local feed and seed store, understanding when chicks are going on sale and the time of the year that they will start laying eggs if you start this process today. Boom. That's part one. That was 3 minutes. I usually like to have these things a little bit more like 90 seconds to 2 minutes. If I can sense that if it goes on beyond 2 minutes, it gets a little bit long. But already, right there, it's now transcribed all of that to text. And let's see how this is going to pop up on my computer. Maybe a refresh, new chat. Boom. Here we go. Okay. I think I might need to load all of this. Okay. All right. So started off with this 3 minute thing that I just rattled off, and then all of a sudden it's completely dictated to text right here. And now all of a sudden, always love here when ChatGPT is hyping me up. This is a great Substack idea. There's real heart and a slice of rural life and a thoughtful reflection on leadership and family balance. So right there, it's already helping me understand, okay, what am I really actually talking about? I'm talking about leadership and family balance. Cool. Might have other ideas, but that's at least steering me in a little bit closer direction to where I ultimately want to be heading. I've got two posts here, and that was a little bit prompted by me. It doesn't usually say that unless I would say that. One is story driven and personal, the other is tactical and helpful. Here's how I'd structure the main Substack essay, the story driven one. All right, so right here, we have an idea of an entire draft of a Substack, but I got to caution you right here because this type of stuff, it's almost like it's almost like like marble to being carved into a statue. Like just because you got a clear, fresh, sexy block of marble, like we need to still remove what is super generic and what isn't true to how we feel or what we want to be sharing. but then we also need to add in, right, all of those types of engagement strategies and hooks and persuasion and quotes and personal details that this just isn't going to be able to give you on this top level presentation of ideas. But let's just see what we got here. So, title idea: the chickens, the cost, and the calling to lead at home. Opening hook: start with the image of Jack Jack standing by the chicken brooder, wide eyes, watching life unfold in real time. Then zoom out to the reality of your wife on the phone with the vet. Your mental calculator running, and you standing in the middle, trying to hold the whole thing together. Middle section's vision, why you said yes, the reality, the startup costs, the tension, trying to be a father and a leader and let my wife do it, but not get her burnt out. The leadership move. So now also another thing that I'm seeing here is that something that's very present in our home now is my wife Chelsea's building towards Chattanooga 70.3, and I'm really working intentionally to give her space both to train but like also just space to just be. And what I've observed is that it is a bit of a default for something new to come into our lives and my wife to allow that to take over everything, take over a complete thought process. Just last week, we had some friend offer us these bison bones, and immediately that was like my wife. Middle of the day, she's like driving out to go pick them up, and I'm like, okay, we need to. I need to be leading better here. I need to be setting expectations on what we're saying yes to, and I need to be presenting the idea that saying yes actually means you're saying no to like a million other things. So that's a thread I could go off of here. Closing reflection, tie it back to Jack Jack again. Maybe a line like, I don't want to raise a boy who sees his parents always choosing ease. I want him to see us embracing adventure, challenge, and learning. But I also want him to see that good leadership isn't about saying yes to everything. I didn't even read that part. It's right there. It's about saying yes to the right things in the right way at the right time. Then for a shorter tactical substack, it could be framed like this. Okay. So let me just let's get to something that can be published here real quick. Um, and let me just I like to copy and paste this stuff in. So I'll say, let's start with a quick and actionable write up on how someone can get started raising chickens and what I learned going through the setup process. Let's rework this section. Ah, fuck. All right, I was copying in my Zoom link. Here's the section. Oh, maybe it's just doing it anyway. Okay, cool. How to start raising backyard chickens, what I learned from week one. So now all of a sudden, this is definitely into the education category of the three E's. And this is pretty much framing out what looks like a full Substack. So now one thing I like to do a lot is I like to basically almost like an accordion. It almost all the time I'm like condensing what it provides. And I like to bounce around between a Substack idea and then a tweet idea. So I'll say like, how can you turn this into a tweet that is less than, I like to give it like word constraints. Usually I say less than 100 words. And let's see what this goes with now. Okay. So now, all right. So now we're getting really live into process here. So what I'm observing with this. So what I'm observing is that this is giving me very good information within the story, but I don't like I almost never like how it starts off. I almost always want to add a more engaging hook. I want to use more of a persuasion strategy, almost more like copywriting tactics. So I will add in here I like to also compliment this thing because I sort of feel like I need to manipulate it in that way and make it like me. This is great. Can we please start with a more engaging hook? Perhaps something like considering or have yeah or maybe so consider or have you always thought of raising chickens and having your or homegrown eggs? It's actually, or say like, yeah, maybe I'll just start with that. We'll see where that goes. I think I could lead it into saying like just a couple of here's just a couple of it's easier than you think. That would be the idea of what I'm getting at. Have you always thought of raising chickens and having homegrown eggs? So that's decent, but this is like I'm kind of like live, engineering this with this thing here. So now it's like that first line is just okay. Can you give me five more suggestions? I'd like to give a quantifiable amount of suggestions. Okay, so now these are getting a little bit more at the almost at the first story to me. Backyard chickens always sounded like a dream until we made the jump last weekend. That sort of sounds like that's getting into sharing how it's more challenging. We wanted fresh eggs. What we got was a full blown family adventure. So that could be a good, interesting frame on kind of telling maybe the experience of it and the saga of it. Raising chickens seems simple enough until one got sick and was on the bed for 30 minutes. Definitely true. Um, I thought chickens would bring fresh eggs. Turns out they also bring unexpected bills and life lessons. Not really the point of what I'm getting at here. So let's just say, let's get back to being tactical on educating someone how they can do this for themselves. Five revised versions. Here we go. So now it's got more, right? And so it's almost like every time I give it something, it gives me something back. And now all of a sudden I'm thinking differently. Okay. This is pretty much exactly what I was looking for. Thinking about raising backyard chickens, here's exactly how we got started. Now, if I'm thinking about, okay, and what it cost, well, I would say that a more effective engagement strategy would be like how we got it started for less than $200. Now, I could have a whole nother part about how, it might end up costing more, but there's also ways that maybe I could make a post on, hey, my wife, here's how my wife decides to find a chicken coop. There's a guy in Denver that makes them custom for $600. And if we want to go do that, that's fine. But also, I'm kind of down to get some ragtag thing on Facebook Marketplace and then eventually build our own when my father-in-law comes to town and can help us out. So now we got this thing about raising backyard chickens. Here we go. Sorry for less than 200. Now let's go back up. What were the, okay, so then I'll just say directly in here, I like to drop in these arrows. Let's go with this. Can you add in the basic details I shared with you? Okay, so it's sort of getting some of this stuff right, but how we got started. Well, six chicks from the local feed store doesn't tell me exactly what that is. Brooder bin and pine shavings, heat lamp and thermometer. That's all correct. Chick starter and waterer. But I want to edit that. I'll say start by going, well, maybe it's like go to your local feed store and find out when chicks go on sale. Start by going to your local feed store. Here's after that, here's the supplies. Here are the supplies you'll need. Brooder and heat thing, just say $50, whatever. Say horse trough to keep them in, say $100. Heat lamp and thermometer, say, I'm not giving instructions here on the temperature. We'll say $40. We'll say chick starter. Okay. And then maybe I can add in a funny little line here. Boom. Now you're a rancher. Okay. Helpful. Here, the polished version. So this is also something that it does almost every single time, is that it almost always gives you some polished version, is what it says. And so I'll often, especially on a Substack, I'll go through this and see like what are the kind of final edits that it might look to make. Um, so for this, right, what changed? It took out now your, or no, it took out now in the bottom part. Boom. Now you're a rancher. So stuff like that, I think that stuff is still is important to maintain your own voice and your own style. Um, and those little like micro things, right? Those little final 1%, 2% things, like that's all about you just maintaining your voice and how do you like to speak and what feels authentic to you. But right here, all right, cool. Now we got the first piece of content around this. Now I could share this as a single tweet. I could share this as a Substack that maybe just has a bunch of pictures with it included too. Doesn't need to be a full write up Substack. Could be a Substack note, whatever you want. Okay. Now I'll say no, this is great. Let's return to the family leadership element and talk about my experience. Um, I'll say like creating I'll say supporting, because my wife kind of kicked this off, supporting adventure for my family while not letting it override my wife's time and attention and becoming a financial burden. Now this is where the deep reflection lives, right? So now this is also as we are, right, leaders of ourselves. Like I'm not trying to just be a farmer talking about chicken coops, right? But like that's just true to my life and that's interesting to, I believe, the demographic of people that I talk to. But like this is more the meat and potatoes of it. I would assume that the truth of what people would resonate with is, oh, my wife says she has no time for herself, yet every new thing that comes on her plate, she lets override her entire calendar. Okay. There's something there. Title: Supporting the Dream Without Losing the Plot. Last weekend, we brought home 6 baby chicks. It felt like a small adventure, something fun, hands on, and educational for our family. My wife had been dreaming of raising backyard chickens for years. Our son Jack was instantly obsessed. The setup cost about 200. So I don't really care about the cost on this. I also don't always need to read through everything on these, honestly. Like I'll just sort of glance through. Here's what we got. It's talking about the cost. I don't want to talk about the cost here. I want to make this about managing my wife's time and attention and helping guide her away from letting new things, say, just like override her priorities, we'll call it. Well, now all of a sudden I'm starting to think about, okay, so this is really about the my leadership responsibility in this is keeping the main thing for the family and helping us stay grounded on what's really important right now. In our season of life right now, it's important that my wife has space. My wife has space to basically just not be burdened by having to do things. That's like the simplest form of it. Chick is sick. My wife was on the phone with the vet for 30 minutes, and while Jack cried for her attention, that is like actually literally what was going down this morning. Jack screaming, crying at the garage door as Chelsea is out here talking about the chick Fiona is sick or something like that, and I'm in the back like this is absolutely out of control. Our son literally when he saw them, but he said it feels like beautiful. He's sick. Things matter most. My wife thought she was in space. I knew about it. There was more sun, time to breathe. And when something new enters the picture, even something good, it can begin to crowd out the margin she needs. So what I'd ultimately like to figure out here, though, is like, what am I doing about it? Like, there's almost not. I don't know that I have the solution yet, but I would say this is true. My role, and this is getting a little dramatic that the chickens are like a dream, but it's something that she's been wanting to do and whatever. But my goal here is definitely to protect her from being consumed by exactly what happened with picking up these bison bones that ended up being uncut bones that were literally like the length of a Jurassic Park leg that came in a cooler. And I'm like, this is why are we accepting this stuff? We are not. I'm out on making bone broth because it's just it takes too much time and it's too complicated. Anyway, that's an aside. Um, okay. I like this line. Leadership in the home isn't just about permission or provision, it's about gently guiding the pace, noticing when excitement turns to overload, asking, what are we making space for and what are we unintentionally pushing out? That's what I'm working on this week. So, um, I don't have I don't feel like that's exactly where I want this to go, but this is also what I'll do next. So what I'll do next is I'll sort of maybe I'll copy and paste the whole thing in here, and then I'll just get to live editing this thing, holding the line while supporting the dream. Last week, my wife bought six baby chicks, brought home six baby chicks. It was something she dreamed of for years. Homestead living, fresh eggs in the backyard, a hands-on project for the whole family. So this is also as I'm like just live editing this. The formatting is crucial. Um, Getting out of this paragraph mode. I was all in on the vision. Our son lit up the moment he saw them. It felt like the start of something beautiful. So now it says by day three, one chick was sick. So I don't know. This is the direction that I want to take it, but I would this could become more of a hinge, as we spoke about in one of the other Cokeepers calls. But by day three, things changed. So now all of a sudden there's intrigue, right? Right there would be a good example of like the ChatGPT just says that the thing got sick, and that's just not the style that I want to write in. I'm not just looking to say like this happened, this happened, this happened, this happened. I'm looking to craft this story that draws the reader in. But by day three, things changed. Oh shit, what changed? So now here, my wife was on the phone with the vet for 30 minutes while Jack cried for attention, and I started to feel like that familiar tug as a husband, as a dad, a leader at home. So how I would change this live is like I was sitting at the kitchen table prepping for a business call and I overhear my wife on the phone with the vet. We'll leave out the 30 minutes part. And then I can add like right away, I'm thinking, are we really about to take a baby chick to the vet? And then I can talk about maybe I'm assuming the vet's not going to be able to do anything for free. And then I can sort of say like 30 minutes later, after 30 minutes, and once she actually got her attention, started like tugs her husband. Well, okay, so here's the truth I'm learning. Yes, turns sometimes yes to a fun idea turns into a slow. we'll say, and with Jack Jack crying at the garage door for her attention, I started to feel that I started to feel that things were out of balance. Sometimes yes to a fun idea turns into a slow no to the things that matter most. So now all of a sudden, if I want to talk about an enlightenment post, that could be an opportunity to say how, sometimes doing a race might mean that you're sacrificing other family related things and like the balance of that and how over the past couple of years of racing and competing and committing to trips, it's made me become more aware of that. That could be brought into this here. My wife thrives when she has space. So to me right here, I would basically actually just delete all of this and see what we can go now that I've worked in on a couple sections of this. Honest with emotional. Cool. So, I am going to pause up at this point here. Um, a lot of times so where would I take this now? This is like probably true of my process. I'm not going to sit here and do this for like an hour or 90 minutes. I'm going to be in here, right? I already got one piece of content. That's good. That already in this process took me a little bit longer than I'd probably like to, but now all of a sudden I got a second segment and now I'll probably pop that into my Substack drafts. And then I'll come back to this and I'll keep working into it. Maybe I'll drop it in here again. I'll full copy and paste from the Substack and continue to just refine and massage this thing. But the more that I can give it feedback and the more that I can then get spark new ideas from it, I'm finding that very effective in bringing my ideas to life. And where did this all start from? It started from just the idea of like, this kind of thing is going down. Here are some ideas that I had around it. Let me just say that out loud to this ChatGPT and see where it goes from there. And so for the guys that I've chatted with recently that are feeling like they've been feeling like they're struggling on ideas, that is the first step of this whole process that I would kick you guys off with. That's what we got for at least round one of this kind of live demo thing. Do you guys have any quick questions here for the guys that have joined?
No question, but if I can just share a quick little bit of advice of what's worked well for me
Sure.
towards the end is like once you get your final form, once you put the Ryan Dryer final form together and you're ready to hit post, one thing that I've been doing is bringing that back into the prompt and asking it to evaluate your style so that the
Okay.
next go around it gets more familiar with how does Ryan Dryer write? How do
Yep.
you think? What's your formatting? What's your style? And it'll evolve over time.
I love it. I think maybe there's an opportunity to provide some prompts to the group. One that I just used yesterday for the first time was I was writing something out and I was feeling like it was getting very long. And so I added into it what can be removed that's not
Mm-hmm.
contributing to this piece. What am I being repetitive with?
Absolutely.
But yeah, I think the more that this stuff just comes to life, I mean, it's certainly a great tool. And so I definitely just want to guide everybody away from again staring at the blank page, right? And this is cool because this also all started back with that first idea of sketches that I taught on. Started with hitting the microphone button and say it out loud. But now all of a sudden, you don't have to just massage that yourself. You can get a lot of good feedback from this thing. Maddie B.
Yeah, that was interesting. I almost feel like it's a great like get your thoughts out, get the outline, do a little writing of your own, bring it back in, get like more feedback, take it back out, and then like put it back in for a final polish. Because I feel like you could just, and I've done this before, just go down the rabbit hole of like make it like this. No, now make it like this. Now make it
Yeah.
purple. It's
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
um so, but no, the voice thing is a huge unlock for me because I always like the inertia to get started is tough.
Right.
But I
So
could,
yeah, I'm glad you took that away. I have been. I think ideally it's like you're in the ChatGPT and then you go to the Substack and then I can see how it's kind of coming together
Right.
and then I can get it back and then I can go back and forth like that. So yeah, I'm glad that worked for you. I'll keep building on this stuff and we will chat soon. Thank you guys for
Yeah.
joining. See ya.
Thank you.